What is your point?
What's my point? What is my point? While you were sitting there sunning on that $25 million boat, eating your $30 a head lobster, did it ever bother you that it was all being paid for by all the poor people and destitute people that your company was systematically taking advantage of and profiting from every single day?
The story starts with a 75-year-old man named Jeremiah O'Keefe. He's a successful businessman who owns 8 funeral homes and a funeral insurance company in Beloit. His family has been in this business for 100 years, but now they're in trouble because Jeremiah lost money in a bad investment scheme with one of his partners. Jeremiah's buddy and lawyer, Mike Ellen, suggested selling part of his business to recover from losses. But Jeremiah didn't know where to find a buyer until Mike mentioned Ray Lowen, who buys funeral businesses. Jeremiah considered the idea and introduced Mike to a smart lawyer named Halbert Davin. During a meeting with Ray Lowen in Canada, they talked about his plan to buy funeral homes. Ray noticed Jeremiah's surprise and changed the subject. Later, Jeremiah realized the Lowen Group kept changing terms and delaying payments, making him feel desperate. Halbert suspected the Lowen Group was stalling on purpose. He worried Jeremiah might lose his business license if they kept waiting. Eventually, Jeremiah had to declare bankruptcy and the Lowen Group bought his business for a cheap price. Mike doubted Halbert's theory because he was black, but Halbert believed in his suspicions. He convinced Jeremiah to sue the Lowen Group. Jeremiah asked his wife about suing in Mississippi, where Halbert suggested hiring Willie Gary, a successful lawyer known for winning big cases. Halbert thought having a black lawyer might be better since the case was in a mostly black county. Willie was hesitant at first, but eventually agreed after Halbert persuaded him that the case could lead to big damages against the Lowen Group, a huge company making billions. Halbert finally convinced Willie to take Jeremiah's case. The next day, at Mike's office, Jeremiah announced that he hired Willie to handle the case. Though Mike hesitated at first, he eventually agreed to collaborate with the condition that he remain the lead lawyer. Shortly after, Willie and some partners from his all-black law firm joined Mike's office. However, a disagreement arose between Mike and Willie regarding settling the case for $8 million. Mike wanted to settle, but Willie, feeling confident, refused, believing they could win more. Jeremiah sided with Willie, convincing Mike to let Willie lead. After Mike agreed, Willie demanded $100 million instead of Mike's offer. Some on Mike's team, including Jeremiah, doubted this demand, but Willie assured them they would win. At the Lowen Group, Ray's colleagues laughed at the demand, but Ray himself was intrigued by Willie. He hired a talented black lawyer named Emaine Diaz. Meanwhile, Jeremiah faced financial troubles and had to mortgage his house to pay Willie. Despite Annette's suggestion to drop the lawsuit and find a new buyer, Jeremiah insisted on continuing. The trial was moved to Jackson, Mississippi, where Jeremiah bonded with Willie over their shared struggles against discrimination. To celebrate their friendship, Willie played his favorite song on the flight. Upon arriving in Jackson, they discovered the Lowen Group's formidable legal team. Willie focused on Emaine Diaz, hoping to find a weakness in their case. During the trial, Willie argued that there was a valid agreement between both parties using evidence of meetings and contracts. However, Emaine Diaz countered his arguments, stating the agreement was legally binding once signed by both parties. According to Emaine Diaz, Jeremiah was feeling anxious because his whole life depended on this agreement. Despite Willie's efforts, the expert witnesses he brought didn't convince the jury and judge. They talked about contract law theories without enough evidence. Feeling like he lost after the first trial, Willie decided to have Jeremiah testify in the next trial, even though the legal team didn't agree. Willie believed that Jeremiah's background as a veteran and community leader would make the jury sympathize with him. However, Mike disagreed, saying Jeremiah should have been well prepared before testifying. Halbert agreed, fearing tough questions from the Lowen Group's lawyers. The next day, Willie talked about Jeremiah's impressive background, but Emaine Diaz ruined Jeremiah's image by accusing him of irresponsible actions, like using clients' money for illegal loans. Emaine's surprising accusations shocked Jeremiah, and he left the courtroom. Willie apologized to Jeremiah, who returned the leadership role to Mike. Feeling guilty, Willie apologized to Jeremiah's wife and found a witness named Lorraine who hinted at dishonest practices by the Lowen Group. During the trial, the Lowen Group fought back by saying bad things about Jeremiah's team. Meanwhile, Willie apologized to Jeremiah, who forgave him. In a meeting, Halbert found an agreement between the Lowen Group and the NBC Church, which could be helpful in the next trial. Douglas asked Mike to testify, but Emaine Diaz questioned him about his grandfather's involvement with the KKK, surprising the courtroom. After discovering Mike's family ties to a racist group, the caring and heroic image built during the trial seemed fake. This led to a conflict within their team, causing some members to quit. Willie tried to comfort his team, saying a person shouldn't be blamed for their grandfather's actions. Despite this, some still quit, including Mike, who felt unable to handle the association with the KKK. With the trial going poorly and losing his team, Jeremiah pondered whether to continue. He wanted to tell Willie his decision directly. Meanwhile, in Jeremiah's team room, Halbert and some members began packing up, believing they couldn't win. Mike urged them to stay and began going through documents himself. In Florida, Jeremiah met with Willie at his parents' house. Gloria, Willie's mother, warmly welcomed him and spoke highly of Willie's bond with her. Jeremiah finally told Willie he wanted to drop the lawsuit due to lack of evidence. However, their conversation was interrupted by a call from Halbert, who urged Willie to stop Jeremiah from dropping the lawsuit as he seemed to have found something important. Excited by the surprising news from Halbert, they quickly went to South Mississippi to meet with most of the black residents associated with the NBC church. During the meeting, community representatives said that a year ago, the Lowen Group offered a deal to the NBC. The NBC represented more than 33,000 black churches with 8 million members. The Lowen Group was picked as the main provider of funeral services for the NBC. They offered different things like headstones, funerals, underground burials, and funeral insurance. The Lowen Group hired black people who were struggling financially to sell their products to others in the community. In return, they got commissions. However, the Lowen Group charged very high prices for their services. People who could afford it got proper burials with headstones, but those who couldn't were buried in unmarked graves on top of where their ancestors were buried. It looked like a big field, and it became obvious that the Lowen Group was using the black community to make a lot of money. They were known for using cemetery land wrongly. They built big monuments, statues, and even buildings on land that black people had paid for. Willie brought several residents as witnesses to court to show how the Lowen Group tricked pastors into selling religion to boost their product sales. During the trial, witnesses testified that due to financial constraints, their loved ones' bodies were kept frozen until they could afford funeral packages or were buried in plywood caskets. The Lowen Group's practices regarding funeral services were deemed unfair. A Lowen Group analyst admitted that the company made a massive profit of $1.2 billion from a deal with NBC, investing only $200,000. Worried about Willie's compelling evidence, the Lowen Group sent Ray Lowen himself to court to address the accusations. However, Willie's questioning portrayed Ray as exploiting the struggles of poor people to enrich himself. It became clear that the Lowen Group had harmed honest small business owners like Jeremiah to expand their network. Ray, embarrassed by his court appearance, exploded during a meeting at the Lowen Group's lawyer's office and instructed Maine Diaz to settle the trial with Jeremiah. Jeremiah met with Ray in a hotel room where Lowen offered compensation in exchange for dropping the case. Jeremiah rejected all three options. The next day of the trial lacked significant input from either sides, leaving the decision to the jury's judgment based on the evidence presented. During the trial on November 1, 1995, the jury decided that Jeremiah was right and ruled in his favor. They agreed that the Lowen Group had to pay $100 million to Jeremiah. Willie and Maine Diaz became friends during and after Jeremiah and the Lowen Group's trial. After an appeal, the Lowen Group's punishment was lowered and they had to pay a settlement of $175 million. 2 years later, Ray Lowen had to step down as the president of his own company. So, which movie should we pick up next? Do let us know in the comments below, so don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Until next time, see you all.